This is a warning. Do not go on Twitter. Worst mistake of my life. The Twitter discourse is always lively. By which I mean it's a toxic cesspool of hatred. You may have seen this clip of a hotel employee having a nervous breakdown after a dispute, I guess. Now, many people had their takes on this, some more embarrassing than others, but one of these people was Tariq Nasheed. Now, you may know Tariq Nasheed for he has a blue check mark. He says, a white Holiday Inn Express worker has a nervous breakdown after he got scolded by a black customer because of a mistake in the reservation system. What's immediately striking to me is the racial lines he's drawing here. Like they seem completely irrelevant to me. And it seems that the hotel worker isn't really at fault here. The fault lies in the reservation system, as Tariq Nasheed says. Let's see the story from the employee's perspective. While I've now quit this position, my management supported me and I'm told I'm welcome back. The guest was ejected from the hotel for escalating issues with the staff and the owners. I do have mental disorders. I suffer from BPD and schizoaffective disorders. I have personally been in touch with the employee. He has borderline personality disorder coupled with schizoaffective disorders. The fact that this has gone viral has sent his life into a dangerous downward spiral. You made all that up! All I see are a bunch of suspected white supremacist trolls making up false narratives and projecting their own anti-black racism. Alright, Tariq. I'm going to have to formally request you to Nasheed these nuts! Okay. Just saying, if you're following me on Twitter, you may have already heard this joke. It seems to me that Tariq Nasheed is mainly just using this as a race issue to divide black and white people for some reason. He's one of those people, you know? He's like the embodiment of the conservative stereotype of what a liberal is. Turns out those people actually do exist. Oh. Like, imagine having this one-dimensional of a view of racial issues in our current society. Like, holy shit, dude. Oh my god. The Holiday Inn employee video I posted that went viral has a lot of white supremacists using the man's disorder as a way to project their anti-black racism. He admitted he had a disorder, but he also admitted he was drunk on the job. So did that contribute to his breakdown? Now this is a really interesting tweet, because in the post he linked down there, nowhere does it say that he was drunk on the job on that day. It says he is drunk right now. I'm having a hard time believing that Tariq Nasheed is actually this stupid. I think the more likely explanation is that he's just evil. The white media has tried to spin this story into a hostile black customer harassing a white, mentally sensitive hotel employee scenario. I mean, yeah. I'm sure we've all had that one time where we have to deal with this one person, whether it's like a classmate for your group project, or a teacher, or a customer, or your boss, or a family member, that really drives you up the wall. That person is so unreasonable that you're thinking in your head, I want to commit violence on this person. And for some people, it really just drives them over the edge. And when you get filmed at your worst moment like that for everybody to see, and then for that to get used by some fucking... I don't even know what Tariq Nasheed is. Is he like a neo-Nazi plant trying to paint the left in the worst light possible? Anyway, it makes me really feel for the guy, you know? I empathize with him. Because I'm sure he knows that it wasn't his best moment either. And now that's going to follow him around for the rest of his life. But I guess that's just Twitter for you. I'm not sure if you're aware what the anime community is up to. If you don't, God bless you. Please don't do any research. I'll give you one little snippet to really incentivize you to really not bother. There was this thread that was going around, which it doesn't exist anymore because it was so unhinged that Twitter actually... Jack Dorsey actually went to the poster's house and assassinated them and then deleted their Twitter account. That's how unhinged this is. It was about some anime translation that they didn't like because it uses gamer words. Now, I don't mean slurs, I mean like actual gamer words, like sus and derp and those kinds of things, you know? Cringe is a big one too, yeah. Thread on what Crunchyroll is doing to Nagatoro, one of the hottest shows out of Japan, is unforgivable. Their translations are not just lazy, they are deliberately shitty and cringe. Cringe! Being called cringe is the worst condemnation you can face on the internet. Adapted by soy bug gamer people to appeal to soy bug gamer people and nobody else. Now, I hope the irony isn't lost on me when somebody who watches anime, especially anime of this caliber, dares to talk down to gamers. Have a little respect for our gaming community, bro. You know, I don't think weeaboos are that much higher than gamers in the online hierarchy when it comes to respectability. You know, in fact, they're probably a little bit lower. That's not to talk down to either of them. You know, I watch anime sometimes. I play video games sometimes. I don't think there's much point in denigrating those two things. Anyway, what really caught my attention with this thread is the second tweet. Second out of like 200. The second tweet. Because it relates to something I have some experience with, which is translating. Now, some of you may know this. By which I mean nobody knows this, because I've never mentioned this ever before. But I used to take Latin classes in school. And Latin, it's a little bit different than your other language classes, because there's a lot more like raw text that you have to translate. The art of translating is really not that simple. Not as simple as this tweet makes it out to be, by a long shot. Translations are a very simple concept. You take a word and translate it directly into another language as a word. Sometimes there is no direct translation, so you engage in what's called localization. I think in order to come to this conclusion, you can only be able to speak one language. Otherwise, you would never arrive at such a conclusion. Because there's a lot more to translating than just directly translating a word into another word, as it turns out. Big surprise, I know. Obviously, there's also grammar and, you know, the general context to deal with. But beyond that, languages really aren't that simple. They really don't... Like, how do I even explain this? You have to account for the culture as well, you know? People who grow up speaking a different language don't just communicate their thoughts with different words. They often have different thoughts as well, which doesn't necessarily translate always. Like, a big part of the class was actually discussing the culture and history of the Roman Empire to give us important context about the texts we were translating. It's like an integral part of translating, how translating works. And when we would take a test, sometimes the tests would just be, we would get an excerpt from a text in Latin, and there would be a little preamble explaining the general context of the story, because it's kind of necessary to properly translate it. It's an art form, and there isn't really one correct way to go about it. Now, I'm not going to say that the translations he's talking about here in this thread are good, because I do think it is kind of cringe to use these gamer words, especially if the original doesn't really go for that, you know, feel, which I don't think it does, judging by the manga translations that he's also showing. But, you know, this thread, oh my god, we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Let me scroll down a little bit. The amount of gays, black nerds, trannies, and linguists shitting their pampers over this thread is wild. You will never pass. You will never convince a man to love you. You will never have the hips of... Jesus Christ. This guy is, this guy is unhinged, dude. And I mean that in the most literal way possible. If you read this thread, it's like... incomprehensible. Yeah. I'm at a loss for words here. It's like a case study in the human psyche, reading this. It's almost fascinating to peer into the mind of this person. I'm not going to defend Nazis here, but... Alright, I think that's about enough. That does it for this one. You know, I'm kind of a debate bro. By which I mean, I like to argue on Twitter sometimes. Here's a personal story for you. I recently got blocked on Twitter by Shoeonhead, and I was devastated, dude. This was a life-changing experience for me. But luckily for you, I do have an alt account, so I can actually show you the tweets that she blocked me over. I am that internet savvy, Shoe. Anyway, here we go. The tweet simply reads, "The Virgin, X is morally neutral versus the Chad. Don't care, it's gross. Now, obviously, this tweet deeply triggered me because it's blatant anti-intellectualism. Like, framing anti-intellectualism as a good thing. I assume that she was probably talking about, like, incest or necrophilia. But if you're, like, right-wing, and you're thinking, like, trans people, they're kind of gross. Race mixing? That's kind of gross. Like, you can fill the blank with pretty much anything, and the argument would be the same. It wouldn't really make a difference. So it's a bad argument. So I called it out on Twitter.com, as you do, as a debate bro. It's kind of my duty, winning every argument. It's in my bio, so I have to live up to that. I said, kind of an embarrassing tweet from Shu. I get that she probably meant to fill the blanks with incest or necrophilia, but you can just as easily replace it with gay people or trans people or anything else, and it would be equally valid. Now, this is an unassailable argument. This is a perfect argument, slam dunk. I have obliterated Shuonhead in a debate online. Get wrecked, nerd. And she promptly responded with, don't care, and blocked me. And that was really sad, because it actually kind of lowered my opinion of Shu a bit. Because I just don't like using these kinds of anti-intellectual arguments. Because we don't need to. We really don't need to sink to the level of it's gross, it's icky, relying on intuition like that. Because we see the right do that a lot, you know? When it comes to gay people and trans people, they'll say, oh, it's gross, it's unnatural, you know? Unnatural is the big word they'll use. Shu uses the word gross, the right uses the word unnatural. It's the same argument, though. It's not a valid argument. If you want to argue against incest or necrophilia or any of that, that's cool. I don't think that's a very controversial stance to take. And personally, I'm not too keen on incest and necrophilia either. I also think it's kind of gross, personally. But I don't use that as an argument against it, because it's a bad argument. And if you use that argument, it lends credence to people saying, oh, gay people, they're unnatural. Because it's the same general logic, you know? You're undermining your own, like, progressive ideals if you do that. It's bad mojo. Don't do that. So yeah, that's the lesson we're taking from this experience, I guess. So yeah, anyway. I'm not mad at you, Shu. I'll forgive you if you unblock me and publicly apologize to me on Twitter. And if you take down that American flag. And then we can be even, alright? To the rest of you, follow me on Twitter. I post bangers all the time. And I think that about does it for today. If there's anything we've learned today, it's that Twitter is where nuanced discussion goes to die. Either way, thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it. If you have your own thoughts, make sure to leave a comment, because I do read every single one of them. Even the really bad ones. And I do judge you for them, so make sure they're good, okay? And see you later.